Welcome to another episode of the Love in Reality podcast. I am your host, Ricky Valero. On today's episode, I'm going to share my thoughts on the three latest episodes of Love is Blind Season 4, episodes 9, 10, and 11. At the end of the episode, before we head into final episode of Season 4, I will be sharing my thoughts on who I think will and will not be getting married at the altar. Of course, we got huge news this week. We're going to have the first ever Love is Blind live reunion show. That's going to be live, folks. I don't know about y'all guys, but the Love is Blind reunion being live, unedited, unfiltered. I don't even know what to tell you guys. Like, I know there's a lot of some tea that I can't share with you guys yet. But I do believe that there's going to be a lot of madness happening. That's going to be on Sunday, April 16th, live on Netflix, 8 p.m. Eastern time. I know I will be seated and ready to enjoy that. It's kind of crazy to think about that. They're going to do a live show. I can only imagine, what that's going to turn out to be. We've got a lot of things that unfolded in episodes 9, 10, 11 that we're going to unpack right now. And because of that, those live episodes and some of the stuff that has been going on the internet over the past week or so should make for some interesting and crazy things to happen on the Love is Blind reunion show. But without further ado, and before we jump into episodes 9 to 11, I want to shout out each and every one of you for listening to the podcast. I can't thank you guys enough. It's a little bit of a venture that I jumped out on and just started doing, and I've had a whole lot of fun doing it. Obviously, with Love is Blind winding down, I will have some more Love is Blind content. I do have some interviews still coming up. Nick from Perfect Match in the Circle is going to be on here soon. I already interviewed him. LC from Perfect Match and Love is Blind is going to be on the show. And then, of course, this past week, I sat down with Shane Jensen from Love is Blind and Perfect Match. That interview is already up. You can check that out on any podcast platform that you listen to. All you got to do is type in Love in Reality. And of course, it's over on the YouTube channel. Again, very, very excited with that. A fun little interview I've got coming in the near future. There's a brand new show over on USA called Race to Survive Alaska. I interviewed the father-son duo of Jeff and Hunter. That should be coming here in the near future as well. But without further ado, let's jump right into Love is Blind Season 4, episodes 9 through 11. All right, folks, we have reached the time where it's wedding dress and suit shopping for each of the individuals. Normally a very emotional time, you know what I mean? Like, this is when things start to set in. This is the things that, oh my God, we are getting married in a mere amount of days. And you kind of see some of that stress with a lot of different individuals on the show. But one thing that came right out the gate was while Tiffany and Chelsea and Bliss and Micah are out there trying on their dresses or finding their dresses, Jackie is nowhere to be found. Of course, Brett tells Marshall. Marshall doesn't take it very well, and Marshall kind of says that he needs to start protecting his own feelings, which is very true. It's definitely one of those things that I'll kind of explore a little bit more in the episode, but one of the more dramatic things I think we've seen so far in Love is Blind history, not showing up for the dress rehearsal or for the wedding dress shopping and stuff like that. That's pretty wild. And how I'm going to break this down today with you guys is I'm going to break it down per couple, what happened in these 3 episodes with these 3 different couples, give you my thoughts on what happened, et cetera, et cetera. Going to kick it off with our favorite couple, Brett and Tiffany. Tiffany meets his friends. Things go amazing. All of his friends are so happy and supportive for Brett. Can't express enough how I love this dynamic here. Tiffany, super stressed out. This is what I was talking about a little earlier. As we inch closer to the wedding, there's wedding planning. There's still things going on. Sure, Netflix is helping them out in the scenario, but there's still a lot of pieces you have to get together, right? You have to get your family together. You have to make sure that, everybody's suits and everybody's, dresses are there and ready for you on wedding day. So the stress is kind of getting to Tiffany. But again, what we see here is Brett comforting her and and doing the right thing as a man, just being there and just trying to make her understand how, hey, things are going to be okay. Just relax, chill. All of these things that he was doing. I love the dynamic here. A little bit after that, we see Brett and Tiffany go on a little airplane ride together. And then, of course, after that, he made a mural of photos that he took and made a little display out of a sweet little affection. I thought it was a nice gesture as she's been going through a lot. She's been stressed out. She's been, kind of on that anxiety-ridden track. And he kind of slowed her down, calmed her down, and did a little sweet little gesture for her and kind of brought it back down to reality of making her, hey, look, it might be crazy, it might be wild, but we still have each other. And I loved it. It was just such a sweet moment that the two share together. And then, of course, Brett's friends start to question how he knows he's in love. And then, of course, he sweetly breaks it down. Like he just kind of breaks down that, she's the one. He's known she's the one, and how their dynamic has worked from the beginning has really helped him out. And then Tiffany does basically the more or less the same things with her friends. And then, of course, the question that has been, for all of us watching, and then, of course, her friends, there hasn't been really on screen that we've seen that conflict, right? We haven't really seen anything happen between these two that really said, oh my God, like these two are fighting, these two are arguing. The only thing that we've really kind of seen was the whole bougie breath thing, right? And that wasn't really a conflict. It was just interesting to kind of see. And then, of course, we have a very, 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 very sweet moment between Brett's dad, and our soon-to-be favorite married couple. He hasn't flown since the 80s, flew out to meet Tiffany. She breaks down her love for Brett to his father. And then, of course, his father's very old school, just kind of that old school type of old head that has stories and is funny. And it was just a very sweet moment. It was just a somber moment. It was a nice little fitting as we get ready to head into the wedding with these two. Just every little moment in this show that I have an opportunity to cry, it's been over Brett and Tiffany. Moving right along over to Paul and Micah. These two are on a shopping trip. They start to talk about living arrangement, which continues to be weird. And then, of course, Paul and his struggles to understand women's clothing. Look, he gets criticized. I get it, dude. We all get it. All men get this 1000%. We don't understand everything. Micah has asked him about Arizona, which he has turned into an open mind and willingness to try. Are we on the verge of these two potentially getting married? Like, what happened? You know what I mean? It's weird to me because I don't know. I don't know how I feel about these two. Like one minute I'm like, what's going on? The next minute I'm like, Paul, run. The next minute they're having cute moments. They've been very hot and cold. I'm still uncertain what I think happens at the altar, but I'm almost convinced that I think I'm still on Paul says no side. But before we get to the end of the episode, I'll let you know how I feel. Of course, the bachelor party happens. I will say this. Was this the most uneventful bachelor and bachelorette parties that we've had on Love is Blind? I feel like there's always something going on during these that turns out to be crazy, turns out to be a shit show, but it didn't. Like everybody was normal, no real craziness. You know what I mean? Obviously, you had a little bit of weirdness with Micah and Paul. Obviously, they were trying to come wreck the bachelor party or whatever that was. But outside of that, like, I don't know. But yeah, these two, they're excited about the wedding, which I mean, I never want someone to be heartbroken, but my goodness, these two are just, I don't feel the chemistry here. You know what I mean? I just don't feel like they are completely compatible. And again, not 100% certain how this is going to play out at the altar. Moving on to Kwame and Chelsea. They're out shopping together. Chelsea is making Kwame feel awkward about how she reacts to him in the morning. He talks about she is suffocating, says he doesn't, she said she just wants to marry him. And I mean, that's pretty cut and dry. We've noticed that from the beginning. Kwame's about to meet Chelsea's family. Chelsea talks up Kwame to her family. Chelsea's mom pulls Kwame aside. Basically, everything in this situation went really, 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 really well. Like, Chelsea's mom and their family was very accepting of Kwame, and I felt it was a strong moment for these two. And then, of course, Chelsea and Kwame do these engagement photos. Um, she wanted to do engagement photos of them like in their underwear, and he was like very, very much for it. And which I thought was very, very cool. Like, I felt like throughout this season, Kwame's been very much, willing to sacrifice certain things. Obviously, we talk about his apartment that's like 3 hours away. His mom's still lingering in the background, and then Chelsea's kind of very much, I wouldn't say she's demanding as much as I would say she knows what she wants, right? You know what I mean? When somebody knows what they want, they don't settle for anything less. And that's just what this is, I think, at the end of the day, is Chelsea's been through some stuff, or has had relationships, and she sees the love and what she can bring to the table. And she loves Kwame a lot. And because of that, she doesn't want to settle for anything less than Kwame's best, which she deserves. But the fact that he was willing to take these photos, I thought was very sweet, because this was like a dream come true scenario for Chelsea. So very sweet moment for these two. Kind of liked it a lot. Kwame continues to have high hopes for his mom, and hope that she will be somewhat supportive of the marriage. Chelsea asks if he's ready to say yes at the altar. He's still very hesitant. And then, of course, she follows that up by asking, will he say yes without his mom's approval? Very just honest questions that, need to be answered. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just so many different things that are happening, and his mom is this fixture of what's transpiring. Chelsea's dad gives her a little bit of a pep talk, very sweet in saying, even saying that she'd make a great wife. Chelsea reads off her vows, and then of course Kwame shares some stuff, some beautiful words, and then Chelsea says, "I do." His sister says, "Yay," and then of course the episode came to a close. They always like to have that little bit of a teaser ahead of the next episodes to make us wait to see who says yes and who doesn't say yes. So that's definitely where we are at with Kwame and Chelsea. We do know Chelsea says yes at the altar. Will Kwame say yes? We'll have to dig into that a little bit later as well. You're welcome for that. All right, Zach and Bliss. Probably one of the most oddball couples this show has ever seen. You know what I mean? Very much weird how this dynamic has worked, obviously, from the beginning. Bliss is with Zach's family, who question him and her pretty rough. It was definitely one of those dynamics where it was interesting to kind of watch, because they question what's going on and what they're doing and how this is going to work and what's going to work, and then of course I don't blame them. You know what I mean? Like, this is a very different experience, and this is like, you're getting married. Like, this is marriage. And because of that, I don't ever feel like the people that drive the hard-hitting questions are wrong in these scenarios. I do say that you should be supportive, though. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't agree, it doesn't matter. Don't be like Micah's friend and be like on the sidelines cheering for their destruction. And then, of course, we have, let's see here, Bliss's family have arrived, her two sisters and a mom. He breaks down how they met. Apparently, Bliss doesn't want him to leave out any details. And, of course, the whole situation unfolds with him telling them about how Bliss was option number 2. And then, of course, her sister speaks out. And, everybody says this. You know what I mean? I just want my sister to be treated with respect, and, treat it with the respect that she deserves. He said now this is the problem I had. He said he hasn't told anyone that he loved them since he was 21. But he told two girls this in what, like 2.5, 3 week time frame? Very confused. Very, very I need you to explain yourself, Zach. Um, Furthermore, all right. He tells the truth about proposing Irina. His sister questions why he's so certain about things. He tries to play that he was not accepted by his past relationship. Her mom brings up how she looks at him, and it spoke volumes for her. It's definitely interesting. Kind of weird. Like it's weird to hear him talk about their parents not being acceptant of him in the relationship. You know what I mean? I don't know how the dynamic is. I know he says his version of it, but it's crazy to me how that works out. It's crazy to me how these two are he just has these issues. Like is there a reason why these past mother-in-laws have not liked him? Like also another very confusing thing. He said he hasn't told anyone since he was 21 that he loved him, but none of his girlfriend's parents were very, I don't know. Are we just rushing out for people to meet our parents? Like that's also a weird dynamic as well. So I'm very confused here. Like Zach's very confusing. I don't know if his stories ever fully add up. Like I feel like he's always saying something and I don't know if he realizes what he's saying is if it's true or not. So it definitely I don't know. Definitely a weird dynamic here. Definitely a weird dynamic. Um, where are we at? Oh man, it gets weird. Zach's dad grills the hell out of these two and like does not shut up. Like he is very like anti this marriage and he's like, you know, brings up his older sister's failed marriage, which I thought was kind of fucked up. And he's like, I know you're happy, but don't fool yourself. Well, but I will say this. One thing that I give mad respect for is Bliss stood up to, her dad giving them the business. You know what I mean? Like that was, you can see and says Bliss says, I can tell you can tell I love him and her dad is giving it back to her. Like it was definitely one of those interesting dynamics that I was kind of surprised by because, again, very hot and cold with these two. Because if you watch their chemistry, it's, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't get these two at all. All right, moving right along to Marshall and Jackie. But before we move to Marshall and Jackie, we have to talk about the meeting of the century. Jackie meets with Josh. Yes, Jackie, after the last episode, we saw Josh come in and proclaim that he was here to be Mr. Steal Your Girl. And apparently it might be working. Um, they sit down together. He brought her flowers and he said it's important that she knows how he feels, that he loves her and he wants to be with her. She mentions that he brought up that Marshall bossing up and being more of a man, but she doesn't care about how he feels or how he feels about her being there with Josh. He asks her if she sees him marrying him and says no. She says if he is willing to be patient with her, she's willing to give it a try. Talking to Josh. Holy shit, what is happening here, guys? What is happening? The biggest, like, we thought that the big twist of the season was going to be Bliss and Zach, right? He made the wrong decision. He chose Irina, wrong choice. Now we have Bliss and Zach, and it's like, that's it. No, this is crazy, right? Jackie Josh meet, willing to give it a try. If you've seen the murmurs on the internet, maybe they're still together. Madness, straight madness is going on right here. I'm here for it though, because you know what? I like Jackie and Josh. I don't care what anybody else says. I am a big fan of these two. I think this is how I feel. Like I'm gonna run it down real quick. Jackie and Marshall sat down together. They chatted. Um, you know, it gets ugly. You know what I mean? And Jackie and Marshall sit down. They talk about the outside the world has gotten to her. And Marshall tries to explain he gave her his all in this process. Jackie says, I can't love you because I'm attracted to Josh. And then she says she went to see Josh. He asked for the ring back. And she says, no, don't agree with that one. I feel so bad for Marshall. Now listen, this is the thing. I feel bad for Marshall. He gave her everything, was emotional, supportive, and was the rock. And sadly, got turned off by someone not looking for the same thing. Now, let me explain this to you. I wrote this a few weeks ago when I watched the episodes, and now I sit here and I'm like, this is how I feel. You have Jackie, you have Marshall. The dynamic there has, once you, love is blind, right? You know what I mean? We've come to that determination that love can be blind. You meet people in these pods, you can fall in love with the amount of time that you're getting to know somebody. Once you get out into the real world, there's a lot of different dynamics that have to fit into these puzzle pieces. You have to fit in the puzzle pieces with your friends. You have to fit in the puzzle pieces with work. You have to fit in the puzzle pieces with your day to day with that person. And then you have to think about how you're going to get married in a few weeks and what that is going to look like, your living arrangement. Then you got to merge the families. So there's a lot of different dominoes and puzzle pieces that have to go together in order for all things to work. So when you first look at it on the surface, Marshall, yes, Marshall 1000% deserves somebody that loves him 1000%. And I'd be willing to bet Jackie feels the same exact way. Now, if we're not going to give Zach this 100% slack, like, shit for turning his back on Arena, making Bliss his option, she was the second choice, then I don't feel like Jackie deserves as much hate that she's been getting for turning to Josh. You know what I mean? Maybe she feels something with Josh, and sure, maybe it's because she's more attracted to Josh, and maybe there's something more there, or maybe that's the type of man that she wants in her life. We just don't know the whole dynamic, and maybe during the reunion we'll hear a lot more, which I can promise you will hear a lot more during the reunion. And like I said, I know some things, but for me, this has definitely been interesting. I don't love how maybe it went down with everybody, but at least nobody wasted time going to the altar. One says no, one makes an embarrassment out of the other, and stuff like that. It's one of those things that whether it was Cole or whether it was Shane down at the altar, they just were made an ass out of for no reason at all. You know what I mean? Like, Cole completely blindsided at the altar, not fair at all. What she said, very fucked up. She knew what she was doing. It wasn't in the moment. I don't care what she says. All right, but that's enough about that. All right, few tidbits about the show. I said this earlier, but this was probably the least exciting bachelor and bachelorette parties. I swear, not having drama for this was wild. Not a bad thing, but it's just a weird. Um, Jackie and Josh's drama made up for a lot of that, I will say. We've known for a little while that these two weren't going to make it. Talking about Marshall and Jackie. I'm glad they just didn't waste everybody's time. And if Josh and Jackie are together, so be it. Like, good for them. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, good for them. All right. That being said, we're going to move on to the segment of the show where I predict who I think will say yes and no at the altar. Obviously, I've been saying for weeks that Chelsea was going to say yes at the altar. She has said yes. What do I think about Kwame? All right. This one's hard. I go back and forth quite a bit on this one because Kwame's mom is in the background, and I'm trying to think of how much weight that is on his back, right? How much weight is that for his relationship? How much weight is that for this show? How much weight is that for this marriage? Can he say yes at the altar? I say right now, I do think that he says yes at the altar. I'll be interested to see how things worked after he said yes at the altar. That's the one that I'm very, very, very intrigued by, I guess the word could be. Let's see here. Moving right along to Brett and Tiffany. Again, I've said it once, I said it 1,000 times. If Brett and Tiffany do not both say yes at the altar, cancel the show, and I will never, ever, ever watch another love reality-based show ever again. This podcast will be canceled. I would be heartbroken. Brett and Tiffany are the perfect couple, and honestly, Netflix, hear me out. Nick Lachey, Vanessa Lachey, great couple. Not saying they're not great hosts. I think they're perfect hosts, but Netflix, hear me out. I think Brett and Tiffany should host Love is Blind. Maybe not next season. Let them settle into their marriage, but maybe like Love is Blind season 7. You have Brett and Tiffany, your perfect, perfect couple that has come from Love is Blind, the best couple that has come from Love is Blind. They should host Love is Blind. Hear me out. I'm telling you, I think it's a great idea. What better way to host Love is Blind than people that have been through it, people that can talk to these individuals about these situations from a perspective of being on the show. So listen to me, Netflix. It's a great idea. All right, moving right along, Zach and Bliss. There's no way she says yes at the altar. Like, he's 100% saying yes. Like, there's not even a question in my mind that he says yes at the altar. Bliss, on the other hand, not convinced. Still not convinced about these two. Still not convinced about what's going to happen. Just a weird relationship. Like, I think the two love each other. I think Bliss is just so, I don't know, like the way she shows affection, it's been very weird. Like, I don't understand it. So I'm saying Zach, yes, Bliss, no. Could be wrong. Probably what she should say. And then, of course, let's pour one out for our homies, Marshall and Jackie. No prediction there. But I hope Marshall finds the person person he loves. You know what I mean? He deserves it. And then on the flip side of that, Jackie, if it's Joss, if it's not Joss, I wish nothing but the best for Jackie as well. With that being said, thank you guys so much for listening to the Love in Reality podcast. Make sure to check out my recent interview with Shane Jensen. I talked to him about his time on Perfect Match. I also chatted with Danielle Rule about her time on Love is Blind. That was both of those incredible interviews. Somewhat emotional, but my goal is for you guys to understand the real person behind what you see on your TV. Like I said, over the next couple of weeks, you'll hear interviews with Elsie and Nick. And then, of course, like I said earlier, I will be releasing an interview with the father-son pairing from Race to Survive Alaska. Thank you guys so much for listening. And make sure to follow me on Twitter at @RickyVlair_ and TikTok and Instagram. I will have some interviews dropping with the cast of Love is Blind season 4 and their thoughts about their reactions about what they did at the altar. Yes, at the altar. So stay tuned for next week while we dissect the finale together. And of course, shortly after that, we'll dissect the live reunion show. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you guys next week.